right, so what I want to talk about today is really the main idea or the main foundational blocks behind building automated processes. And these applies to really any automation tools. It can be, Zapier, it can be Make.com, Gumloop, N8N, doesn't really matter. These ideas, these foundations apply to all of these platforms. All right, so let's talk about it. Now, in this particular example or in this video, I want to show you the main idea with N8N, right? But as I already told you, you can use this knowledge for any single platform. So right now I'm in the N8N page, and just to quickly give you an idea what N8N is, essentially N8N is a platform that allows you to create automated processes for basically anything, right? So if I show you an example that they have here on the website, here you can see a simple automation for onboarding new employees, right? And the trigger is whenever a new form submission is submitted, right? It will create a new user in Google Workspace, and then it will route down here. It will create a Slack user. It will update the Slack profile as well, right? And also, if the role is a manager role, it will create a Jira admin. If it's a normal member, it's going to create Jira member, right? So this is very simple onboarding flow for new joiners inside of a company, but you can make it even like more simple, right? It doesn't have to be this complex. You can make it even more simple, like whenever there's a new email in the inbox, you just add the email into Google Sheets, for example, right? But you can make it definitely more complex as well, right? We can have like very, very huge workflows that do a lot of the manual work for you, right? Okay, so that's basically the main idea of an N8N. And before we jump into the app or the platform itself, I just want to quickly go into a design board and really show you and explain to you the fundamentals of automations. Okay, so let's talk about what are actually automated processes. So a process is basically a set of steps, okay, that needs to happen every single time in a specific order, okay? Now, if you take a very simple use case, for example, in business, right? If you have a website, probably you have a web form, all right, that you use. So we can have a simple process where on the new form submissions, let me make it bold. So on new form submissions, let's say you want to add this new lead into your CRM, right? So add new lead into CRM, right? Then maybe you want to then send a welcome email, all right? And this is actually it. This right here that I designed is a simple process that maybe right now in your company you are doing it manually, right? Maybe a VA is doing it for you, or you are doing it for yourself. But essentially, this process, a lot of people are still doing manually, right? So whenever there's a new form submission, let's say Google Forms, right? People would open up Google Forms, copy the data, open up CRM, paste in all the data for the new lead, and then they would use that email to then go into Gmail or Outlook to send an email, a welcome email, basically. So there's a lot of steps here, but you understand the basic idea here, right? So this 3 simple step process that you can easily understand, hopefully, is essentially a process that can be automated, right? And in this process, you can see that every process will have some type of a first step, which is most of the times the trigger, okay? And in this case, it is a event-based trigger, okay? And the event is, when there are new submissions, start this workflow, right? Start this process. But we can have, other triggers. For example, it can be every Monday, right? So these are time-based triggers, right? Or we can, trigger the workflow every hour, right? Every hour, check this website for prices, right? To check stock prices, or every minute, check stock prices. Every 5 minutes, check flight prices, things like that. So every process has either a event-based trigger. In this case, it's whenever a new form is submitted, or it can have a time-based trigger where we specify really the time when the automation or the workflow should get triggered, okay? So these are the triggers. And then once we have the trigger step, then we just have a number of ordered steps that needs to happen after that, okay? And that's essentially it. This super simple process is something that we can automate. And let me show you another basic idea behind the automation, right? Let's dive deeper into it a little bit. So imagine you have a VA, and this is a process, this is a SOP, standard operating procedure, that the VA will do every single time a new form submission is submitted, okay? So if you were the VA, what would you actually do? Well, when there's a new form submission, you will open Google Forms, right? You will open up that new form and you will copy paste or write down on a piece of paper all the details that we collected from the user with that form, right? So we have some kind of data, right? You know, copy paste it or you write it down on a piece of paper. And then what you're gonna do next is you're gonna open up a CRM. Let's say it's gonna be Monday.com. And then you're gonna use that data that you got from Google Forms and you will use it to create a new lead or create a new customer, right? Add the name, add the email so that everything is logged, okay? And after that, you're gonna open up Gmail or Outlook and you're gonna use the email to send the welcome email, okay? And as you can see, when we are like diving deeper into this, we're essentially reusing data that we got from the previous steps, right? And this is a big feature, right, that every automated tools have, which is reusing data from previous steps so that you can really automate and use data as the flow goes, okay? Let's say that you want to add another step, right? Once you send a welcome email, we want to go back to the CRM, right, and change the status to email, right? So what would the human do? Well, the human would, you know, basically go into the CRM, find that specific record, and then the VA or the employee would then change the status to email, okay? And again, we reused that data, reused data from the CRM to change it to the to add in a new status, right? So hopefully you understand this concept, because this is basically it, right? For simple automations, even more complex automations, all of these foundational ideas still apply, okay? So let me go into N8N and let me actually show you what I mean by this. Don't worry, I'll drive this idea home once you actually see the some kind of a workflow going. So in N8N, once you create an account here, you'll have a 14-day free trial. So use that while you can, right? I myself, I am self-hosting, which is, you know, cheaper. Instead of paying for, you know, even the cheapest plan is 20 bucks or 20 euros, right? But you know, for testing, just, you know, sign with N8N Cloud, have that 14-day trial and try it for yourself. And once you open up the account, you will see something like this. Of course, you will have empty, you know, workflow section, but you'll also see something like this. You will have some extra buttons if you're on a cloud N8N solution. But let's create a new workflow, right? So it's a new button here in the right upper corner, and it will lead us to a canvas where we'll be sketching out or designing our workflow, okay? So as you can see, the first thing that it like kind of prompts us to do is adding a first step. And as you know, the first step is the trigger, okay? So let me add a first step. And in this case, we have a lot of different types, but essentially it still applies. A trigger is either time-based or event-based, right? So trigger manually, that's an event, right? When you go and manually trigger it. On app event, you know, obviously that's an event. On schedule, that's a time-based, okay, trigger. Webhook call, form submission, executed by another workflow, on-chat message, these are all event-based as well, right? So let us go with on-chat message because it's very simple to understand, okay? Essentially, what this trigger does is it triggers itself, it triggers the workflow whenever there's a new message coming in, right? So if I open this open chat, we see that there's a chat interface, and if I press hello, we'll see that, you know, the automation just got triggered. And when I open this chat trigger, one more thing, in N8N, you know, these modules, these steps are called nodes, okay? So when I open this node, I will see that I have an output, right? I have data from that node, right? I have session ID, I have action, I have chat input, which was the text that I inputted. And if you go back to here, that's exactly the data that it generated, right? Each step will generate some type of data, okay, that we can then later reuse while the automation goes further along the line. So in this particular example, let's just make a super simple automation. Whenever there's a chat input, I just want to send an email with the input as a body, okay? So let me add Gmail node, and in this case, I want to send a message, okay? And first, we need to create credentials, right? So if you are on a N8N cloud hosted solution, if you click add credentials, you will have an extra button here, I think, that will just redirect you to a another page where you can log in. And once you log in, the credentials will be created, right? Since I'm on a self-hosted instance, I don't have that. But if you are on the N8N solution, cloud solution, you will have that option. So go ahead, sign in, and once you have that, the credentials should be created. Okay, so here, let me send it to my email. So michael@digitaltech.com. Subject, let's go testing, right? Email type, let's go just a simple text. And here, how would I reuse the data, right, from the previous steps? As you can see, on the left side, we have an input section. And the input section has all the data from previous steps, right? And since the email node is a second step, we just have one sets of data from the first step that we can reuse, okay? And how to reuse it? Well, you just take this variable, which is the chat input that we want to send. I'm just going to drag it in into the message column or message field, and that's it, right? We have a little preview here down here that you will be selling hello, okay? So let me test that step, okay? And as you can see, we have another set of data. And if I open up my Gmail, as you can see, we have a testing with that text as a content, as an email content. And this is essentially the main idea behind automating, right? If you go back, we can then add more things. Let's say that I want to send another email to a different email this time. I'm going to do the same thing. Let's keep it simple. Let's just send a message. I don't want to confuse you too much. And let's use a different email now. So I'm going to use my personal testing email. Okay, let's go also testing. And as you can see now, since this node, right, this Gmail one is a third step, we have data that we can reuse from both of the previous steps, right? From the trigger, right? And also from the previous email that we sent, right? So I can reuse a lot of data, right? Let's say that for the subject, I don't want to use testing. I want to use the ID of the previous email, okay? And for the message, let's go with the chat input, okay? And let's go with space, and I want to also send the thread ID of the previous email. And as you can see in the preview, we have hello, space, and the thread ID. Okay, I'm going to test that email, and we have another set of data that we can reuse later. Okay, and let me go into my email, and as you can see, we have the new email with the correct reused data, right? And I'm pretty sure by now you have a lot of ideas how you can use this tool to really create other processes, automate a lot of the stuff that you are doing manually right now. And that's great. That's great thinking, because you can automate a lot of things with this. With these basic steps and ideas, you can do a lot of things, all right? But let's not stop here. Right now, this 3-step process is super simple. Whenever there's a new message input, we will send an email to one account, then we'll send another email to another account. But let's say we want to add some logic. We don't want to do this every single time. We want to add some logic, add some conditions. I mean, we can do that, okay? So I'm going to disconnect. I'm going to add a new step. And this time around, I don't want to use step that does something. I want to use step that routes or changes the flows or add some logic behind that. So I'm going to use if node. And what I want to do, let's say that when the chat input equals to hello, I want to send to this email. Okay, right here, this Michael at Digital Tech email. Okay, and if it doesn't equal hello, if it equals anything else, I will send it to my to this email right here. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we need to compare the chat input to know how do we route it. Okay, so I'm gonna select the value. So the chat input is something that we'll be comparing it against, and if it is equal to hello, this will become true, right? So if the chat input is equal to hello, it will output as a true statement. And as you can see, in the if node, we have two outputs. We have a true output and we have a false output. Okay, so we're gonna link the true output into my working email and link the false output into my other email, right? I'm gonna save this and let's try it out. So I'm gonna type hello. And as you can see, it didn't send email to both of the accounts. It only sent to one account, and that is mine account over here, right? I get hello. Why? Because the input was hello, which is equal to hello, which is true. So it went to the true output, right? If we do something like my name is Michael, we'll go down there, right? And we'll be essentially sending email to my personal email, right? And now there's one thing that we need to be careful though. Since we separated these steps, this Gmail one, as you can see, it's red, doesn't have that information from the previous step. If you remember, in the previous example, we had the Gmail right behind the first Gmail, all right? But now, since we add this logic, it is no longer behind, which means that we cannot reuse the data that we initially used, right? We can only use data from the previous steps, which at this point, it's the trigger and the if node. Okay, so we cannot really use this. So we would do something like, let's say, again, testing, and this will also need to be replaced. Let's just, remove it, right? So this is just something that you need to keep in mind, that you can only reuse data from previous steps, okay? And that's essentially it. With this kind of basic understanding of automations, you can really start creating automations, not just in N8N, but also make.com, Zapier, Gumloop, because the logic thinking process is the same, right? Well, what I also recommend every single time, whenever you are building workflows for yourself, for your own business, or for clients, always try to first design it. It can be even just a piece, take a pen and paper, but try to design it so that you see the step, so that you know what steps needs to be taken, what platforms you will be connecting to. Is there another area that can be integrated into this as well? Is it even possible, right? Maybe some step that you define maybe is not possible with that platform, right? So always design, and then once you have a clear designed step-by-step process, then you can easily map it out here in N8N, make.com, really any automated platform, so that you save time and you're more efficient. Okay. All right. So hopefully this helped you guys. If you liked it, hit that like button, subscribe for more similar content, and if you want to learn even more, get more hands-on experience, join my school community, where I share my experience with working on real projects, working with real clients, sharing templates, sharing ideas, sharing discoveries, and just try to connect with people that also want to learn more about automations and AI. So with that being said, I'll see you next time.